would say 7th gear probably is still a little bit too long. But we've got another way to solve that issue without touching the gears. Okay, well that's a 126.320. Not the fastest of lap times, but I am running 85 litres of fuel. Okay, let's return to the pits. Now I did say that I think 7th gear is perhaps a little bit too long, but then this car now feels like it's got lots and lots and lots of grip. So if that's how an F1 car feels, knock off some aeros. And see how it goes. Now, at Donington Park, I did try going with this aero setup. It didn't work very well. I will give it a go, but I'm thinking somewhere around about 3s or 4s will be much better. But I am going to give this a quick blast. I should know within the first few corners, the first lap, whether it's going to be drivable. Now it is possible that you knock the aeros down as much as I have, and when we get into the braking zones, whereas before I wasn't locking up, there's a good chance that this actually might, and that's because you take aeros off and it can, basically when you hit the brake pedal, you haven't got the downforce pushing the car into the road, making the tyres grip. But we will find out. He did not want to slow down for that corner then. Like I say, I expect this aero setup to not be very nice. It'll be okay on the straights, it'll be okay on the fast corners, but in the braking zones, it's going to be a lot more tricky. Now you could alter your driving style and just brake earlier. Ooh. But you may still find that the car hasn't got the overall grip to make all the corners. But you may have just noticed then we did easily get over 200 mile an hour, and we're going to do the same down here. We're already up to 207. And we're topping out Actually, it doesn't feel too bad there, taking it a little bit cautious. We're able to carry the speed through the corners. Now this is where we struggled last time, so I brake a little earlier. And that's straight into the 25s. Oh, now that was slightly too early on the downshift into first there. But the car has now gone a bit more towards being a little tricky to drive again, but that's to be expected on the aero setup that we're running there. So if we were to knock the aeros up a little bit, so this is now in between, or near enough in between what we've just ran and the 6.0 that it was running before. So we'll give that a try. We're probably not going to get to the same speed down the straights, but we may be able to just be that little bit more aggressive into the braking zones without the little spin that we had there. I mean, we've worked out a way to get rid of the low speed spins, but now you need to work out a way to maximise the ability of the car. At the end of the day, it should be good in the braking zones, fast through the corners and fast down the straights. Not all out of shape in the braking zone, slow through the corners and wobbling all over the place down the straights. Now, after I've done a couple of laps here on this setup, what I'm probably going to do is go to another track and try exactly the same thing at another circuit and see if it solves it there as well. Because at the moment, making first and second gear long has just totally changed my opinion of this car at this track anyway. Instead of it being a horrible piece of crap that you can't press the brakes or get out the gears in, it's now a race car. I stayed on the brakes a little too long there. Curve's not very nice. The thing is, the little change that I've made, it's altered the whole confidence I have in this car now. So I'm not afraid to put my foot down. I'm not afraid to push it into a corner. I'm not afraid to approach a heavy braking zone. And in race cars, you need to have that confidence. Because if you haven't got it, you're just going to be slow. Into the 24s. So in the space of two very little sort of setup changes on the car, we've knocked a couple of seconds. Well, it's more than a couple of seconds. I was in the 128s with the car as standard. Now that to me is very interesting, because when I was doing Brands Hatch, I had to put the brake pressure down to about 80%, because if I didn't, I was locking the tyres up. Now around here, I've not had a single problem with locking the tyres up, and that could be down to the track, or it could be down to the gears as well. So I'm going to save this setup now, which is going to need, I have to exit, go to the garage. These pain pills I'm on, they've made me very awake, very talkative, but very dry mouthed. I blame my brother for giving me extremely strong medication just for a toothache. But that's what happens when you've got horrible toothache at 2 o'clock in the morning and you realise you haven't got any paracetamol or anything in the house. So you speak to your brother, say, you got any painkillers? Yes, I've got some really strong ones. Okay. They are strong. Right, so I'm now going to go to, well, not just yet, I'm going to save that setup. Excuse me, and then I'm going to go to another track. I'm just trying to think now of a track with some potentially tricky little corners. I did a race earlier tonight around Silverstone, or last night around Silverstone, with a few of my friends, and I found it very tricky around there in these cars, until we put the assists on. We don't like using assists. We put the assists on and the car did handle much better. Okay, I'm not going to save that to all the circuits. Okay, you should be bringing up the tracks. Okay, it should be bringing up a list of the circuits. Aha, there we go. So, circuits. Okay, Monza. I don't really want to save it to all of the tracks, so how do I get it to deselect all of those? Well, maybe I'm just going to have to go through the list, because what I don't want to do, I don't want to go to another circuit to try and have this current setup on. I want to go to another track, go for the standard setup and go from there. Okay, so that setup is now saved for Monza. So we're going to freak practice again. I'm going to pick a different track. Now I could go to Silverstone again, because we did a few laps around there and found it quite tricky. A few silly little spins. I'll tell you what, I will. Okay, come on Silverstone, you're on the list somewhere. So Silverstone GP circuit. So I'm not going to do anything to the setup, although while I'm in here I probably am going to just hit reset, just to make sure that it doesn't revert to the Monza setup or anything like that. Excuse me. And I'm going to drive it and see how it gets on. I expect it to not go well, because I do know what the car is like around here. And the difference between this car with no assists and this car with assists is worlds apart. They're like two completely different